All right, let's do it. Can't do the live, you know.
And now, the Lowdown, with economist and political strategist Elson Low.
Folks, welcome to the Lowdown. Thank you for starting your Saturday night here with me on a high. This is going to be a program we're going to have every Saturday from 7 to 8. And this is the first show, so I'm very excited. I'm your host, Elson Low. And so we're going to have a really interesting and fun show going forward. If you could share the link, that would be great. Let's try and get as many people as possible on, viewing the show. We're gonna have a nice little laugh tonight, so hopefully we can share that with as many people as possible. So share the link, folks. Share the link. I know that many of you are joining from North America or the UK or Canada, so we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to see the show. Share the link, and let's get kicked off for a great night. So essentially the idea behind starting off this show is that we needed I think a space where we could have a laugh and talk about local issues with a bit more depth in a way that we can't always following the day-to-day news. And so this will give us, I think, a good opportunity to do that. Also sometimes when we discuss these issues, things can get very heavy and very contentious. And one of the things I say that we should keep in mind is we should make fun of policies and projects, not necessarily people. The other thing that often happens, and I'll tell you something that you might find interesting, is that as an economist, as a former investigator, I will often get technical people who reach out to me, and they'll give me tips. They'll give me tips about projects that they think there's a problem with. They'll give me tips about costs that don't seem to be quite right, about the nature of the geography of Guyana and the way that it will affect things in the country. And as a result of getting these tips, I can sometimes share a slightly different outlook or slightly different information about what's going on in our country and what we should be aware of going forward. So that's something that I hope to bring to the show. I think also it's good to have a show where we talk a bit more about solutions, not just about the problems that we face, and we open up discussion in that regard. I think that's really useful and something that I think is important for us to have going forward. And finally, let's, as much as we talk about these things, we'll try to keep it from being too combative. So we'll talk much more about the government than necessarily the PPP. And from that perspective, hopefully we can have deeper conversations, fun conversations that don't get too heavy, and where citizens feel comfortable talking about important issues. So that's really what we're looking to do here on the Lowdown. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Amalia Falls. Amalia Falls, which is quite an interesting historical story in Guyana. There's a lot of drama around Amalia Falls, so we'll get into a bit of that. We'll also have the chairman of the PNCR here for a few minutes to chat, just a light chat. And then we'll close the show out talking a bit about, something that a lot of young people will often speak to me about or question or, ask me about, which is, how do you get a job in the oil and gas industry? How should you be thinking about being employed in the oil and gas industry? There's a lot of foreign companies that are now in Guyana. and how should we, really think about that whole industry and how we relate to that entire industry. And so those are some of the things that we'll discuss. We hope to have a really fun and pleasant show. And let's start to get right in on things. Now tonight, we'll essentially be carrying you on a journey down the Essequibo River. We're going to be carrying you on a journey, from Region 4 where we are, down past Region 10, past Region 7, all the way up to Region 8 in the Pacaraima mountain range, where we're going to be talking about Amalia Falls. If we could get a picture of Amalia Falls up there, just remind our viewers, isn't it beautiful, lush, and green? Amalia Falls, though, you can move the picture. Amalia Falls is a bit like that toxic ex that never really wants to let you be free and leave you alone. It keeps coming back. It drunk texts you. It always says that it loves you, but it really doesn't. And for our younger viewers who might be watching, some of the most popular shows right now, it's Amalia Falls is definitely a Euphoria character. That show Euphoria. There's a lot of drama. Yeah, that's what Amalia Falls is. So that this project originated in the 2010 period when we first had activity there and building efforts there. But we were never able to really complete the road, just the road, much less the hydroelectric dam that Amalia Falls is supposed to allow us to be. That's supposed to be the site for the hydroelectric dam. And as a result, we were never able to, get electricity produced from this particular source. So some of the things that really were concerning that came out of Amalia last time were that the cost moved from originally 350 million US. That's a serious chunk of change, to over $1 billion US. Basically, it had tripled, which is quite a change. And also that the road itself, there were several delays in terms of actually getting the road done, and in the end, we couldn't get the road done. Allegations that the people involved in building the road were maybe not the appropriate people. But that's a tale of the past, and it's been widely reported on. But here we have plans to restart Amalia, to get Amalia going again. I told you, it's that ex that always drunk texts you. This is exactly what Amalia is, because we're back here again, folks. And it's going to be a fun ride. I'm going to carry you through all of the questions that are around Amalia. And I think, the longer I talk, the more you'll be convinced that we really got to let this one go. We got to get some closure and move forward with our lives, because this is looking like a bit of a disaster. But I'll take you through it, and you can judge for yourself what you think about that. But first, we have a report from Roman Abramovich, who is a reporter with many years of experience, here to give you a little bit of information about Amalia Falls and the government's plans regarding it. Thank you, Elson. As we're hearing from the Ministry of Finance, the Amalia Falls project is relying on two studies, one from Brugman SAS and the other from Norconsult. Of course, these studies are several years old. Back to you. This is Roman Abramovich for KTLPEY News. Thank you so much, Roman. I have to say that I love those sunglasses. They're great. They're the best thing that I've ever seen. I love them a lot. So now that we have a sense of why the government is continuing to pursue Amalia, the Norconsult and the Brugman study, which looked at hydroelectric power in Guyana and looked at sources of green power in Guyana. So that essentially, those are the two things that the government is relying on. And we heard even recently the government speak about how they want to use these studies to justify continuing on with this particular project. And, it's good that we've got studies to back up these types of things. But, when you think a little bit about these studies and you think a little bit about the environment, you start to understand that these are not the most appropriate studies to be using, because they kind of narrow, or are very narrow in the way that they look at the issue. Now, uh, one thing that comes out of these studies is that Amalia is the best location for hydroelectric power generation. That's fine. That's, undisputed. I think that everyone understands that. That's okay. But what they don't quite answer is Amalia a good project at all? As in general, it may be a good hydroelectric project, but does that mean that in general it's a good project? I give you the analogy that you could find yourself with the best flavor of ice cream. It tastes great. It reminds you of what it's like when your parents tell you that they love you. It's beautiful. It's everything you ever dreamed. But if you're lactose intolerant, and every time you eat ice cream it looks a bit like Nightmare on Elm Street, then it doesn't really matter whether or not you've got ice cream, right? And so, as much as we may have the best hydroelectric project available to us, that doesn't mean in any way that it is a good, useful, or even a project that we should actually be focusing on. And that, is really what we've got to discuss a bit tonight. And as we go through, I think that increasingly you'll come to have a few questions about the project. The next thing to consider is that, just as Amalia started off, it was 350 million US. So that was the original price that we looked at. Now we're looking at a price of completing Amalia being 700 million US. So twice as much. But I think sometimes we in Guyana will look at things that are incredibly expensive and not flinch. And I'm thinking to myself, if a project doubled in cost, shouldn't that alarm us? Here's a concrete example. Gas prices from early last year to even this week, they would have doubled. Are we comfortable with that? Is that paining our pockets? How can we look at Amalia where we're seeing the cost double and not think that that is something that should concern us? So that's the first thing that we should really ask about Amalia. But as we even talk about the doubling of the cost of Amalia itself, I have to say that when I heard that we're going to be buying power from Amalia through a fixed agreement with the Chinese investor, well, not investor, the Chinese company that's going to build the falls, we're going to be buying it at 7 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, actually, they're producing at 7 cents per kilowatt hour, but we're going to be selling this at 15 cents per kilowatt hour to the average Guyanese. So we pick it up at 7 cents and we sell it at 15 cents. The first question, and I think it might be obvious to all of you, is there a specific reason that we're buying power at one price and selling it for twice the price to Guyanese consumers? Now, that may be below the current price that is paid, to consumers in Guyana, by consumers in Guyana. But is there a reason that we're comfortable with doubling the cost? And that, for me, raised a few questions. And I think that's something that we want to keep at the back of our mind, because it's strange. And there's a lot of things about this particular project that the more you think about them, the stranger they get. So we're going to continue along this path. I told you I'd take you on a journey down the Essequibo, and we're just heading down. We've got our speedboat and we're making our way. Now, one of the things that is fascinating about Amalia is that it is very far. The falls, the hydroelectric project, is very far from the coast where the electricity is required. Very far. How far? Over 220 kilometers. It's all the way in Region 8. We're talking about Pacaraima Mountains. We're talking about areas with no real roads, rural areas, mountainous areas, hilly areas where you have a lot of rivers and so on. So it's not territory that is easily accessible and where we could easily build roads and so on. It's not. It's the opposite of that. And when I look at the gas to shore project and the costs of attaching the gas to shore project's electricity, the upcoming electricity that's to be generated by natural gas, to the distribution network, in Guyana. That's going to be in the Sophia area. There's a cost of attaching the gas ashore to Sophia. I see that the cost of that is US 84 million. Yeah, so 84 million US dollars is going to cost to attach the gas to shore project to our networks at Sophia. That's about 20 kilometers. And it's 20 kilometers on the coast in an area where you have roads, where you have access to various infrastructure facilities. It's in an area that is relatively flat. There's no mountains, there's no, rushing rivers and so on. You have a relatively peaceful area that you can work in. So that's the best case scenario for, that kind of a wire. That's fine. But, when we look at the cost following this, that it would probably take to attach the Amalia Falls hydro to the coast. I mean, again, we're talking about 220, kilometers, so pretty far. The cost of attaching Amalia to the coast, just using this estimate, would be 924 million US. Now, I started off by saying the cost of Amalia is 700 million US. So, do you mean to tell me that the wire to attach Amalia to the system, to our electrical system, costs way more than the whole of Amalia? And the other question I have is the government saying that in this 700 million, they think that the cost of the wire is included in there? Well, if this makes any sense, then we're way, way, way off in our estimates. But that's not all, folks, because it gets much, much worse than this. In fact, there's a falls further out called Cato Falls. And Cato Falls, there was an hydroelectric project, but a smaller scale one. But, off of that, you can kind of get an estimate of what it might actually cost to attach Amalia to the coast. The cost of attaching the Cato Falls, if it were large enough for us to actually, use it as a main hydropower generator, is 3.8 billion US. Now, Cato, granted, is a little further than Amalia, but the cost to attach Cato to the coast, some studies indicate, would be almost 4 billion US. Amalia is not that far from Cato. Now, doesn't that mean that the cost to attach Amalia to the coast is likely to be absolutely monstrous? Absolutely monstrous. Now, here's another interesting thing. I started off by saying that the location for the gas to shore is on the coastal plain, and so it's an easy location for us to actually have this electrical connection, to run this electrical power line. Now, Amalia is in the Pacaraimos, the tallest mountain range in Guyana. It is far. It is 220 kilometers away. It's far. And so my question is, why in the world are we going clean across this country to set up a hydroelectric power facility when these costs could be monstrously expensive? To the point that we're talking about some crazy, crazy numbers. And I'll give you a sense of the potential savings from using other means of power in the country. But yeah, crazy, crazy numbers we're talking about here. So this is one of the main risks that comes with the Amalia project. Now, it's been said that all the costs will be borne by the contractor and that everything will be folded in there. But, and I give you a sense of a tip that I got from a technical person about the Demerara Harbor Bridge and the way that contract kind of fell apart. One of the things that I've, heard from, again, a senior person is that the cost of Demerara Harbor Bridge was going to be higher than the cost that the contractor had agreed to, and that there was some discussion around increasing that cost. And so the contractor, wasn't in agreement with that. Now, we've got a contractor again who's agreed to build Amalia for, a relatively moderate cost of 700 million. But, if I had to guess, I'd guess that contractor is not going to get started on that project because there's going to be a lot of discussions around the costs, because it seems like Amalia might cost much more than it actually really sounds like it'll cost. Now, you might think to yourself, all right, this thing is going to be very expensive, but there's a reason that we're doing this. It's justifiable. Maybe we want hydroelectric power because it's more stable. Maybe we want hydroelectric power because it's going to provide us with a different part of our energy mix. So it's worth the cost, no matter how monstrous the costs are. It's worth it. Now the thing about Amalia is this particular falls has been known to dry up. If our operators could put up the next picture of Amalia there. Yeah, looks like there's a lot of water flowing there. Looks like we can get a good hydroelectric station, right? That's Amalia in the dry season. And a lot of the falls around Guyana actually dry up quite substantially during the dry season. So, when they say, and we can move the picture now, when they say that this is going to be stable power, year-round power, I kind of think to myself, what is going on? What is going on? Because clearly that's not going to work out. So maybe we should consider some other options, and we'll get into that in a minute. Maybe it's going to be a long-term project. That's another argument you could make. But the savings from Amalia are so substantial that you could actually invest all of those funds, and you could have multiple projects over 100 years that would have exactly the same output. So again, that reasoning doesn't stand the test of time at all. Doesn't stand up to inspection at all. There's even people from the area who say that because of the geography and because there's other rivers and rapids that are really connected to Amalia, that we're not going to even see the full output, because as the area floods, of course that's a gold-bearing area, so the cost of flooding it. As the area floods, you may see other paths, other rivers swell, and the water run off in those directions rather than running through the dam. So those are some of the concerns that we hear from people in that area, which is again very alarming. But as we consider whether there are other options, let's look back at these two studies, the Brugman study and the Narcon study. Now, that study, the Brugman study, says that hydro is the best green option, but that study is 6 years old. And when you look at when Amalia originally came out, we originally looked at it, we're talking 2010. 2010 is a long time ago. For context, in 2010, I was fielding the old Mango Pelter, C115, those phones that were basically indestructible. Yeah, that's what people were carrying around in 2010. That's how far back we're talking here. And it's the same project we're looking at. It sounds crazy? Here's something else that's crazy. How much the cost of solar has fallen from 2010 to now? It's fallen by more than 80% from 2010 to now. And so let's look at an alternative to Amalia. And that alternative is solar. So if we can get the next image up. Oh. Down. Yeah. All right. So now we've got an image which gives you an idea of how solar costs have fallen. As you can see, PV, which stands for photovoltaic, those costs have fallen tremendously from 2010 to, I think that graph was up to 2019, 2020. But, the costs have fallen tremendously. The cost that we're going to be buying power for Amalia is 7 cents per kilowatt hour. In that graph, you can see that you can get solar energy from as low as about 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So even then, it's 3 times cheaper than hydroelectric power at Amalia. So, there's been tremendous progress that's been made. So for us to not take that into consideration and to rely on studies that are several, in excess of 5 years old, I think that is very concerning. And I think that explains, again, why Amalia makes less and less sense the longer that you look at it. All right, thanks. So we've got the cost of solar falling. What does that actually mean in terms of electricity generation in Guyana? What does that mean? The cost of producing a solar plant on the coast, let's use the Wales location as an example, is roughly about 300 million US, and that includes the connection to Sophia. That includes the connection from Wales to Sophia. Now, Amalia, again, even at its lowest, even if you take the government 100% of their word, would be 700 million US, so twice as expensive. And I think that it's sometimes people don't necessarily trust these numbers. They say, "Oh, you could say anything," but I can give you a couple of examples, and hopefully that will ease your mind. And I'll start off with an example from Barbados, but I'll also use a project that the government, a solar project that the government has decided that it wants to go down, and I'll use the government's own numbers to show you how ridiculously expensive Amalia is compared to solar. And so I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to take the government's word for it, and for you to assume going forward that the government is, some of their calculations, maybe they're off. It could be that, the calculator ran out of battery or something. These are all possibilities. But we'll use the government's own projects to show that, these numbers aren't quite right. Now, let's look at Barbados. In Barbados, there's a electricity generation. I believe it's solar and hydrogen, and a new electricity plant that's going to produce 178 megawatts of electricity. Amalia is 165 megawatts, just about, and that is going to cost the massive cost of 100 million US. So for 100 million US, 1/7 of the price of Amalia. 1/7. We're getting more electricity being produced in Barbados. And credit to Kaiser News for bringing this up. Our good friend, well, not always a friend, but Glenn Lal, I've got to say, they're stressing this poor guy out. He's taking a lot of stress because he's bringing these things up. And, he's on TikTok all the time. He's bringing these things up, and he must be very concerned, because how is it that you can see in Barbados, right next door, they spend $100 million to do this, and we in Guyana spend $700 million to do less. And this $700 million is best case scenario. Best case scenario. Now, you might think, Cultural News, they have an agenda. They're anti-government. They always have an agenda. And I can understand, why you might say something like that. That's okay. But, recently the government applied to the IDP for 83.5 million US for 33 megawatts of solar distributed throughout the country. Amalia, of course, is 165 megawatts. Now, even if you just look at that project, where it's a solar project, costs 83.5 million US. If we were to use just that project and expand it so that we got 165 megawatts, the cost of that would be 418 million US. So if we use the government's own numbers, the government's own project, we would cut the cost of Amalia by almost half. And that, of course, is Amalia in the best case scenario. There's a worst case scenario that I mentioned. That worst case scenario is where it costs in excess of $3 billion. So we've got here the government's own project, which shows that for only 417 million US, we could have exactly the same amount of output from solar. Very interesting. But when you think about big difference between solar and hydroelectric power, you really you gotta say, Father God, what's going on? Because solar can be on the coast right next to where the electricity is required. So you can have almost no wire, almost no cost for the connection of the wire. And again, Father God, we are going up to the Pacaraimans to build a hydroelectric dam to cross the whole of Guyana, when we could easily build a solar farm right on the coast, easily do that. But no, we're gonna do the hardest thing possible. We don't like easy, soft spin bowling. We gotta face pace. We gotta get the ball swinging, new ball. That's how we like it. We like the hardest possible projects. That's how we like to do it in Guyana. We're not building Amalia because it is easy. No, we are building it because it is hard. We want to show that we can do something which is incredibly difficult, and is so difficult, in fact, that we run the risk of several $billion of loss. That's how we approach things. I mean, it's beyond, when I say beyond belief, beyond belief. And so this is one of the things that I think is really continues to be concerning, and will be more concerning as we go forward. In fact, we could easily save. We could easily save $2 billion. We could save 2 billion US, over the life of Amalia, just from the reduction in the cost of electricity. Remember, I said solar is 2 cents per kilowatt hour, and we're going to be selling solar. We're going to be selling electricity from Amalia in the best case scenario at 15 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at that saving alone is 2 billion USD over the course of the 20 years, 25 years life of the project. 2 billion USD. That alone. What you could do with 2 billion US? It costs 20 million US, give or take, to make the University of Guyana free. You know what 2 billion US could do? We could make the University of Guyana free for 100 years. That's how much money we're talking about right now. And so, let's take a step back, viewers. You look at countries like Norway that have their own hydro, that, have free education and so on. Why do they have free education? Could it be, perhaps, that these countries resist, don't, try to avoid wasting 2 billion USD for no real reason? Could it be that that is what these countries do? And that is why they have things like free education and a very efficiently run public sector? Could it be? Now, to close things off, we've again heard that it's only going to cost 700 million. We got to have faith that it's only going to cost 700 million. But I keep coming back to something that I told you viewers to keep an eye on, and it's this. Why are we buying power from Amalia for 7 cents a kilowatt hour and selling it to consumers for 15 cents per kilowatt hour? Could it be that the government has anticipated that it is going to have to spend many billions of dollars to connect Amalia to the coast, and that difference in cost, that difference in price, is really why we're going to be paying an extra 7 cents per kilowatt hour? So to close off, instead of paying 2 cents per kilowatt hour, we're going to pay 7 cents. We're going to pay 15 cents, my bad. That means that we're going to be paying 7 times as much. And for what reason? No discernible reason. But that's how it goes in Guyana, and I always want to share these light and funny things. And viewers, hey, it's always great fun to talk about how we're going to cross the Pacaramas for no reason at all. Now, we're going to move on to our next segment, where we're going to chat a little bit with the new leader of the PNC, the new chairman, sorry, of the PNCR. And he's excited to come on, so we're going to bring him into the studio. Sherwin, are you there?
I'm here. Good evening to you. Good evening to your viewers. And I must say, I've been enjoying the last half hour. It's good to have a little laugh, and in the way I just loved it how you explained it. Great job, Elson. Fantastic.
Thank you. Well, they're making it easy for us, Sherwin. I mean, it takes 2 seconds to look at this, and the numbers are so utterly ridiculous that it's
you remind me of the West Indies. I thought you would have said, with this pin bowling, we're like the West Indies. We like it the hard way.
yeah, let's make it as difficult as possible to get electricity in Guyana. Let us go all the way to the Pacaramas rather than building something right here on the coast. That's the way to go. Now, one of the things I wanted to
do.
Yeah, sure.
The funny thing is that some of my studies now that I'm currently doing are based on energy efficiency. My master's actually is in energy efficiency. So I've been really going through these things, Amalia Falls. It's amazing. I've been in
Yeah,
contact with engineers, some of Guyana's first engineers who actually did the feasibility study for almost every fall that we have in this country. And
yeah,
from the beginning, those engineers were saying that Amelia is a no-no. 165 megawatt, 220 kilometers, it just
yeah,
wouldn't work. And these are the
yeah,
first set of engineers, the people who did the initial feasibility studies. And so,
yeah.
names like Melville Sankey's and, God rest his soul, he's passed now. But he's a person that I admired in my years at university.
Sure, sure. Well, there you go. A lot of technical people are expressing concerns, and I think that is very much understandable. But hey, as I said, Amalia is that toxic ex that just keeps on drunk texting you in the middle of the night, won't let you live your life. It keeps coming back. I don't know how to get rid of this thing. So,
Yes.
one of the things I wanted to do is just to have a lighter chat with you, just to help people to get to know you. You're a very young chairman of a major political party, so
Youngest,
must be congratulated for that.
youngest in the history of the party.
There you go. That's a great thing to see, and I'm glad to see that young people, are taking on prominent roles in the PNCR. So I wanted to ask, where are you from? Which village are you from? Or are you from town? Are you from the coast?
I I am from Henrietta. I currently live in Henrietta in region number 2. I like to tell people that I'm from Danielstown and Henrietta, both communities, because my mom actually comes from Danielstown, and it is no secret that my mom is more on the Indo side. That part of the family, they're Indo-Guyanese with a little bit of mix of Portuguese there, but largely Indo. And my father's family is from Henrietta. So it's just like 2.5 miles separating the two communities,
Oh,
But that's my zone here, region number 2. It's very close to Anne Regina. Peaceful community. I believe the entire region number 2, has been one of the most peaceful regions. Well, you might know that, Elson, because you visit the region. Very
yeah.
peaceful.
I have
Very
family
peaceful.
from that region as well, so it's a beautiful place. It's always good
Yes,
to get
yes.
out.
3 lakes. We have a few lakes here. It's good for tourism if we can invest the way we should and promote it the way we should.
Sure.
It can be a buzzing region.
Yeah,
Rice
yeah,
farming community, big rice farming community. I hope the rice farmers here don't begin to protest. And well, it's not me for me to hope, but I hope the same thing doesn't happen to them that happened down at Blackbush area.
yeah,
But it's a
yeah.
big, huge rice farming region.
Yeah, well, for the sake of our viewers, there were some protests from rice farmers saying that they're not getting the same price for paddy. Obviously, that is going to be a big concern regarding their income. So there were some serious protests there, and we hope that that situation can be properly resolved so that the rice farmers, their interests can be secured as much as the country's interests are secured. Now,
Yeah.
I want to give you a quick fire round here, and I'm gonna give you two options, and you tell me one or the other. Tell me which is your favorite of the two. I'm just gonna
Uh-huh.
go through these. It's gonna, just to give viewers again a little bit of an idea of who the chair is. So, first one, beer or rum?
That's a tough one.
Tough
I'd say
one.
rum. I'd say rum in this case. The
Rum.
beers,
All
the
right.
beers, the beers. Have you go into the washroom too often? I like to take a cold beer.
Okay, okay.
I like to take a
That,
cold beer, but I'd prefer
yeah.
I'd prefer the rum.
Okay, okay, yeah. Well, nothing like a cold beer on a hot day, indeed. All right, pepper pot or garlic pork?
Pepper pot. Pepper pot.
Ooh,
You know,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in
I agree.
indigenous realm. I love a pepper pot.
I
And
agree. I agree.
for me, it is not the pepper pot that you might be accustomed to. I like the cassava water pepper pot.
Oh, okay, okay.
You
Wow.
know, the
Yeah,
cream
sounds
stuff.
very authentic. Yeah,
And if you get cassava bread, if you get it thick cassava bread with it, it's good.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I'll have to try it the next time I'm up that side. Definitely. Here's the next one: Mobby or Sorrel?
definitely.
Did okay.
I'm not a fan of Marby, neither Marby or Sorel, but in this instance, I will go for the Marby. I will go for the
Okay.
Marby. I'm now getting um into the Marby somewhat, so I'll go for the
Yeah.
Marby.
Okay. Okay.
Sorel is
Good.
not my kind of drink.
Oh well, that's that's understandable. That is a tough one, I would say, from my perspective. I love both Mobby and Sorrel, but I'm not the one answering the questions. Um, Creek or seawall? Yeah, for a nice relaxing Saturday afternoon, would you prefer going to the creek or hanging
For
out on the
me,
seawall?
it's gonna be the creek. For me,
Mm,
we have yes, 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 yes.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I'm
okay.
I'm a region two boy. The seawall is not a big thing for us here. It's more of the lake. So you say creek, but we got big, huge lakes here. So for me, it's the creek.
Okay, okay. Well, it's gonna be lake versus
We love the
seawall then.
black
All right,
water.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Uh, Coffee or ice cream? It's a tough one.
Ah, that's a tough
Yeah.
one. That's a tough one. But I'd go for the ice cream. I'd go for the ice cream. I'd save
All
the
right.
coffee and go for the ice cream.
Sure, sure, sure. All right. And last quick fire question: Alligator or Jaguar?
Ah, I'd
Deep
say
in thought.
Jaguar. I think
Jaguar.
the Jaguar is stealthy. It can surprise you. It can
Mm.
be very very aggressive. For me, it's a Jaguar.
And
For
here,
me, it's a Jaguar.
I thought you were just being patriotic. All right. I thought you were just being patriotic. All right. Now, two things. As we move forward. What's your favorite thing about being the PNCR chairman? What's something you like about being the chairman? Maybe an experience you've had that you've treasured. Something you might want to share with viewers. Anything along those lines.
I there's so much there's so much, but I think the mere fact that I can be the youngest chair, that would
Sure.
go down in history. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that there wouldn't be other young people. I would like that there could be younger chairs than myself, but for now that title is reserved for me. I'm learning so much. I wouldn't profess to know it all in politics as being the youngest chair of the PNC. But I have great persons around me. And of course, I have a leader who I'm second to, a leader that is filled with so much knowledge, so much intellect, 50 years of experience. And so this has been a really great experience for me. And I think that I'm learning by the day, by the hour, by the minute.
Yeah.
As we go forward here. So for me, it's just being the youthful chairman and having the opportunity to bring that youth perspective to the
Yeah.
seat of the chair. You
Yeah.
know, that is it.
Def-
That gives me that kind of satisfaction.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just wanted to close off here with what are you looking forward to in Guyana's future? What is something maybe that you might be hopeful for, optimistic about, something that you're happy about in the future and you want to see come to
I
pass in Guyana's future?
I for me, is a united Guyana. It's always unity among the six races. I believe that that is one of the reasons why I joined politics. When I looked at how the country was, growing up, I grew up under the PPP government, largely under the PPP government because I'm only 35. And so from 1992 all the way to 2015, it was the PPP in office. And I certainly wasn't pleased with the way the country was run, especially in terms of the division. And I thought that being a youth, first of all, and being a youth that comes from an Indo-Afro background, I could do so much, to aid in unity, in unifying the country, in unifying our party, in unifying the country. And that is something that I want to see. I definitely want to see the six races getting along, in peace, love, and unity in this country. And that is one of the goals that I set out to at least, I
Yeah,
wouldn't say that I can achieve it all or by myself, but everything that I do will be geared in that
yeah.
direction.
Good, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I share the same hope for our country that we'll be able to make that kind of progress. It's been really great hearing from you, Chair. I'm sure that you're well. It's not the season
Yeah.
for Pepper Pot, but I learned quite a lot about Pepper Pot just from chatting with you tonight. So I'm glad that we got to have a nice informal chat. And you have a good rest of the night. Thank you for coming on the show, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yes, anytime, anytime. I love the program. I love the program, and thanks for having me. Anytime.
Thanks. All right. Well, that was the chairman of the PNCR, Sherwin Holder. It was a nice, light, fun chat. We learned a bit about him, and we will try to bring on various figures for a similar, light, fun chat as we go forward. I think it's useful for us to get to know those in public office in ways other than just talking about politics, so that we can get a sense of the type of people that they are, and so on and so forth, going forward. Now, the other thing that we're going to kind of close off the program with tonight is just a quick chat about, the oil and gas industry and how young people can look to get themselves involved, can look to get jobs in the oil and gas industry. And, I think that, if we could just get a quick shot there of the oil and gas industry. So, a picture from the oil and gas industry. There you go. You've got your hard hats, you've got your coveralls, you got some oil workers there. And, that's something that we're going to see more and more in this industry. So we're looking forward to that. There's going to be as much as maybe a dozen FPSOs. That's the vessels that produce, the oil offshore. So the industry is really at the beginning, not anywhere near the peak in terms of employment. But one of the things that I also observed, and just from looking at I went to the last day of that oil and gas expo that recently happened, where the opposition was not invited. That was a very unfortunate situation. But I just took a look around to see what type of businesses are there, and there are quite a lot of logistics businesses and so on. And I think that you're going to see a lot of foreign companies, a lot of U.S. companies come in to support Exxon and to support the other companies that will be producing oil and gas. Now, given that that is the what we expect to see in the future, if I were to give a young person one bit of advice as to how they can go about getting a job in one of these types of industries, it may be a bit counterintuitive, but I would say just go out, in the evenings, go out for lunch, go out around town, and try and meet as many people as you can. Networking is really vital when you're trying to get a good job and you're trying to break into the corporate culture. So, as much as possible, just try to go out and interact with people, be friendly, be open, try to learn where you can, try to meet new people where you can, try to see, have different experiences and just chat with people. And as a result of doing that, you'll meet people from all over who I think, many of whom will be foreign folks who will be engaged in the oil and gas industry. And you can just get to know what their business is like and, what kind of progress they're making. Networking is really vital. And having worked in corporate America myself, that's one of the things that we were taught is really important in order for you to have a successful career. So that's one thing I would say. I would say go out, meet people, chat, and get to know people in the oil and gas industry. Another thing I would say is that there are some differences, in the corporate culture and the differences in American corporate culture from what we might be more accustomed to in Guyana. And networking really helps you to navigate those differences as well. One being that you have a much more team oriented culture in the US and in other countries where it's much more of a friendly work environment. And networking is one way that you can kind of demonstrate that you're comfortable in a more relaxed working environment where it's much more of a team movement, not as much of a one person kind of calling the shots, which maybe is more the environment historically in Guyana. There are different work cultures around the world, and that's perfectly acceptable. But it is important to understand that a lot of US companies will be looking for friendly people who can work in a relaxed way for long periods of time with their co-workers because it's all about teams in the US corporate culture and about making sure that the team has a good cohesion and there's as few tensions as possible. So networking helps a lot in that regard. And it's something as a result that you should keep an eye on. A couple of tips regarding networking, just to give you a sense as a young person that's trying to put yourself out there. It may be a bit obsolete now, but it's good to have a business card. Simple, but a business card, is tends to be a very efficient way of communicating all of your details and showing that you're professional. In fact, when I went to that oil and gas conference, I was just there for a few minutes, but somebody gave me their business card. I didn't even say that I was, working for a particular company or representing a company or but they gave me the business card, which shows me that they're out there looking for jobs, looking for job opportunities. And as a result, they were able to really spread their network and let a lot of people know that they're there and that they're available and ready to engage in work. I think also, again, obvious, but you have to really get your resume in order so that you can send it out immediately if you need to send it out immediately. Often, jobs you'll need to communicate right away. And so having your resume at hand, well polished, well organized resume, clear resume is a good thing. Maybe we can have more of a chat about that on another show, but a resume is really important and one that communicates your value is pretty vital. So I think that that's another thing that is something that we, as a young person, you should really try and get in order. Of course, professional dress in professional settings will help to demonstrate as well that you're here and ready to engage in a professional career. And so I would encourage as young people, as much as possible, where you can, to dress professionally. You don't have to always be in a suit as I often am. I'll grant you that. But it is good to look good, to look professional where you can. And when you're interacting with people, if you can look a bit more professional, that I think helps to communicate that you are someone that takes their work seriously and is really willing to work with in an environment that will be demanding. One of the things that is a bit different, from Guyana and Guyanese culture, though corporate culture. Though of course, every business is different and everyone's experiences will be different. Is that sometimes you can have very long hours at U.S. companies, and it's a possibility that as those companies move to Guyana, they'll carry the same work culture where you'll have to work longer hours, and that's something that I think Guyanese should adapt their, adapt your mindset or adapt a bit of your work culture around, because expectations will likely be very different. And as a result of that, being able, showing that you have a high degree of professionalism, I think lends itself well to fitting into a work culture that is demanding. And it is possible that U.S. businesses will have a very demanding work culture. Obviously, they'll be looking for the best quality work that they can get. Obviously, there's a lot of money involved in the oil and gas industry as it grows and as it powers so much of Guyana's economy. And so, it's very reasonable that U.S. businesses will be a bit more like that. So that's some of the areas of advice I want to give young people. Go out, meet people, network, talk with people as much as you can, be friendly, be open to new experiences, and try to meet people from all around the world, many of whom will be engaged in the oil and gas industry. I just try to get to know people, as human beings, and see how things can progress in terms of opening up your network. As you network, be conscious of the fact that there's a different corporate culture that you may come across with different expectations. And then just try to really be as professional as you can be in these endeavors, whether that's having a business card, a well-prepared resume, or professional dress. These things, in combination, should help to improve your chances of getting a job very substantially. A lot of people, will apply for positions, but networking and helping people to know that you have good professional skills will help a lot in terms of helping you to find a job. And so that's just one thing I want to share. Every week we'll have a little segment like this where I'll give you an idea of various things, whether it's how the housing market is changing in Guyana, whether it's what you should look for or how you should approach creating and structuring a resume, whether it's what we should anticipate in terms of the speed of the growth of the oil and gas industry in Guyana. These are all things that I think it's worth talking about. Now, I'm coming to a close here, and what I'd say, just want to say to viewers, is hey, you guys go out, have a great Saturday night. We look forward to seeing you here again next time, and start your Saturday off on a high with Elson Low right here on the Lowdown. And hey, let's have some more fun next Saturday. So thanks again, viewers, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next go around.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.